I did the first lockdown in Paris, and that was pretty tough, living in a shoebox apartment, and we couldn't go outside at all. So we moved down to the countryside here, and did the rest of all of that period here, which was basically where I wrote most of the album I put out recently, and it certainly made that part of life a lot more livable being out here.
That's a nice segue. Your website's great, by the way. I don't know if you had a hand in that yourself.
Yeah, I'm a one-man operation.
Little pat in the back, that's great, man. It's kind of, it makes
save a bit of money.
Spending a bit. Oh, definitely.
I did most of my own artwork and all the web stuff, and I wrote even the program, the store, the merch store, and everything. It's all me. So.
Good stuff, because it makes it a more pleasurable experience if you have some time to go through someone's website and you take a look at what you've posted there, of course. So the most recent album was Nothing Stays the Same Way for Long.
Yeah. And so that's my first full-length album with just my name on it. I was in a lot of bands for a long time. We put out records, but it's the first one of full-length album of just me.
And from what I read on your website, it was an interesting kind of meeting of minds with your English friend.
Yeah, my buddy Joe. So he, I met him in 2019. Yeah, 2019. I went over to the States for a few weeks. Part of it was at a songwriting retreat, workshopy camp sort of thing. With that band, folk duo called the Milk Carton Kids. You familiar with them?
I do, yeah.
So they were running this thing, and with Joe Pug as well, another great songwriter. He was there, if you know him. But there were about 40 of us who were there for about 4 days, I think. That was magic.
Were you out in the boonies somewhere? Was it typically in
upstate New York, like Catskills, like near Woodstock? Really beautiful up in the mountains. It was magic. None of us were quite sure what it would be like.
This is your first time doing something?
Yeah, and it was their first time doing that camp too.
All right.
So it was all a bit unknown, whether it was just going to be sort of rich fans or whatever, but it was actually, everyone was there was a really, really good songwriter. And they all became very good friends of mine. And Joe Boone was there, and he's a young songwriter from England, probably the best guitarist I think I've ever met.
Well, some great performances on YouTube with the two of you as well.
We did those in November last year. Yeah, that's been a little thing we've been putting out when I was back there. But I asked him if he wanted to help make a record and produce it with me. So he said yes. And we started it through COVID at distance. Like I was recording here or when I in my apartment in Paris, at least doing demos. And then we decided we'd prefer to do it in person. So we sort of waited until I was able to travel. I've got several passports now because I have an Australian one. I always had dual citizenship with the UK, which let me live here, but then I've also got a French one now. So I was able to, when the border restrictions were still quite stiff, but citizens were able to move, I could get to England and also could get into France to come back. So I went over there and did a record. We spent about 6 weeks making it over there in southwest England, North Devon, with mostly me and Joe and a couple other girls, two girls that were also at that camp, Bryony Lewis and Cara McKee, who sang all the harmonies on the record. And otherwise it was all us, except there's 2 or 3 little pieces that we got sort of found people online to do a little bit of violin and a little bit of pedal steel.
Kind of fill the sound out a wee bit that you couldn't do yourself, but
just things we didn't have instruments for.
Yeah, I was going to say
one of these
maybe
talented bastards. He could play everything. He played the drums and the keys and the guitar, and I played a bit of keys, but he played most of it.
Don't you hate those guys? They're just like you're just like, come on, Oh, he's a spare oboe I've got lying around, one of those guys, marimba handy. But they're always good to know those guys, right? When you're in a pinch or in a jam. Some of the songs on the albums, as I was kind of listening to it the last week or so, No, and see if I can get them in the right order. So, Blue Eyed Annie's an older track.
No, that came with the
No,
writing of the
that came
record as
with it.
well.
Is
The
it?
the the,
Is it
the
the
old one
Wolf?
is
It's older.
the old one is Mary, the track 2. I wrote that a long time ago. That song Mary is also on that. I put out a little EP in 2017, I think. That was sort of my first toe back in the water of doing stuff under my own name, and that was on that. But I wrote that back probably more than 10 years ago. So that was the one old one. All the other ones were new.
So the kind of songs that are prominent or coming to mind, you've got The Wolf.
Mm-hmm.
No, I Don't. And I think the third one I said was Blue Eyed Annie.
Yeah, sure.
Is that right? Can you tell? I'm curious to hear. So one of the opening line is something about being in a band.
Yeah, that's the Wolf. Yeah,
that's the Wolf. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah, there's a how can I say it? Like, there's quite a lot of songs on the record that I think were written towards memories and stuff of like where life used to be back in Australia, I suppose. That one and Little Pearls of Water and a few others are all definitely aimed at like, I've got so much space from life back then now, so I'm looking back at over there. And all of them are also sort of touching on, I don't know, there's a lot of songs about alcohol and stuff like that on the record as well, but which is sort of some personal experience and some story experience as well, and thinking about, when you're writing songs, you think about friends and other people, and things you've met along the way and people like that you sort of all work in together.
So there's maybe it was one of the interviews I read also on your website. It was talking. I say I'm blagging all this stuff now and pretending it's mine, right? I'm like, good old research. It was an interview you did with I forget the website, but they were asking you some questions and stuff. But you were talking about where you get your, just as we mentioned earlier there as well, about where the lyrics from and the stories and the words and so on. What comes first for you? Is it the words or the tunes?
The tunes. I think they're kind of one and the same, or separately and together or something. I don't know. It's never one. I never sit down and say I'm just going to do this first. I'll have, I think, like most songwriters these days, the voice memos on this thing is
it's a great tool. You're just
hundreds of them of little, noodling things on a guitar, and you hum and try and like
keep it for later kind of thing.
Keep it for later, and quite often I think it's like nonsense sounds. Like if I have like a melody that sounds right, you just sort of sing, scrambled eggs or whatever, and sometimes the words just, or at least rhymes, like vowel sounds that will fit nicely over that cadence come out, and that can sort of be a way in. And then sometimes I have lines and things like that I've also got, notebooks full of shit that I add to all the time, and we'll try and sometimes smash them together. If, take this chunk of words and this voice memo thing and see if they work together. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I try other different orders. And once I've got a hold of at least something, I can start rolling from there. Like, might just be a chorus, or sometimes it's a first verse and I don't have the chorus for ages. Sometimes there'll be a gap in a song for a long time. I think, I'm trying to remember back now, but I'm pretty sure The Wolf, that first verse, the once I played in the rock and roll band part, was the last bit I wrote, and it took a long time to get. I had the other parts of it. But at the very start, there was just a few, I don't know, I overthink things for a long time, sometimes fitting just the right syllables in where really nobody's ever going to notice.
Well, you do.
I get stuck on it. Like, I'll have a song will be finished it'll be written in 2 days, except for literally sometimes one line, like one rhyme I can't find that makes me happy. And it'll be like that for 2 months more sometimes. And then I'll finally get it. And
right, done. Do you have some new material ready to go? I mean, you have a kind of a You were saying there are notebooks of stuff and whatnot. Have you got
Yeah,
things finished, partly finished, good ideas?
I had a little batch that I wrote earlier last year. I got probably four, I think, that I'm happy with. One in particular, I started playing live um, probably about a year ago now. And every time I played it, people, I think it's costing me record sales because I've been playing it at gigs and people come up to buy my record and be like, I love that song. It's on the record, right? And I'm like, it's actually, that one's actually not. And then that one was like, oh, well, I'll get it when it comes out. But that one's going well. So I recorded that one.
The story of a rock and roll troubadour, right there.
Yeah. I've recorded that one and another one. I think I'm going to put those out in the next couple of months as sort of little singles in between. And then I've got a few more on the boil, trying to work towards something for probably 3 or 4 more on the way. But I need to sit down and focus because I've spent so much time since the record has come out trying to do all the stuff that you hate in the music world, doing promos. I do it all myself. So sending emails, trying to book shows, trying to organize the logistics of all of that, do the tour, do the posters, then do all the content, make these videos, make the artwork, do all of that stuff. The stuff that takes up a lot of time away from the actual writing part. So
it's this side of showbiz no one really gets to see, right? Is it when you're going to roll up your sleeves and do it yourself?